Welcome into this edition of Intercollegiate Conversations. As today we're pleased to be joined by Nolan Alexander, the Assistant Athletics Director of Communications and Broadcasting at Kennesaw State, also the voice of the Owls. And Nolan, appreciate the time. I want to dive right into your story. Just tell us, take us back to the beginning. Tell us how you first got into college athletics and working with universities.
Yeah, Luke. Well, thank you so much for the time. Always great to catch up with you and hear about the exciting things going on with your life. I started out in a peculiar route. So that was when I was an undergrad. I went to Georgia Tech and had dreams of being a broadcaster. And there wasn't a broadcasting or communication school at Georgia Tech. So it was trial by fire. I tried out for the radio station and did a baseball broadcast there, demo tape of fall ball. And I didn't hear back from the hiring manager for a couple of weeks, so I thought I just bombed the whole audition. So I'm literally walking up to the campus radio station to resign since I wasn't going to be doing any sports. And by circumstance, happened to bump into the guy who was hiring. He said, "Hey, I've been slammed. I haven't listened to anyone's tapes." I said, "Great. I was about to go quit." So he said, "Give me a couple of weeks," and was fortunate enough to be hired on as number two for Tech baseball my freshman year. And that created the opportunity. And again, trial by fire, like was took a lot of time to be able to become comfortable in the booth. That continued to open up doors at Georgia Tech as an undergrad and propelled me to start my journey in college athletics.
And I'm sure throughout that journey, well, first off, I mean, obviously more goes into it than you just calling and broadcasting the games.
Mhm.
So, with that said, throughout your journey, I mean, how have things changed from your perspective since you started to now? And let me just preface by saying, not talking about name, image, and likeness, transfer portal, everything else
Yeah.
going on in college athletics, but from your role, have you seen a lot of change from when you first started, even back when you were that freshman at Georgia Tech, to your current role now?
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, when I started at Georgia Tech, that was fall of 2010, so a decade and a half ago. And when I graduated from Georgia Tech, at the time, it was still predominantly radio broadcasts with a one camera stream on the athletics website. I had done the first ESPN3 event at the new basketball arena at the time, the Camish Pavilion. And that was circa 2012, 2013. So the whole ESPN3 true video streaming more than just a one camera stream to your website was very novel then. And if I were to tell someone, hey, when I graduated college, that wasn't much of an ESPN Plus presence, probably think they're talking to someone who's much older right now. But that's just how much things have changed. When I first started out after I was at Georgia Tech, went to Jacksonville University, and then graphics were a novelty there. Graphics had really started just in the years prior. So, from a communications perspective, which is part of my job at Jacksonville and did a little at Tech, uh, was to be able to handle social media. So the responsibilities and the requirements from a communications contact from a social media presence has changed dramatically in the last 10 years. It was live updates on Twitter then, and it was being able to search your favorite GIF, which was actually a little bit fun. You used to have, from a baseball sense, you know this, Luke, like you can be a little bit more conversational, more relaxed, a unique tone that you can have on a baseball account than maybe you do a football or a basketball account. So that was a little bit different then of what you could do at that time, what was the norm across college athletics to now how everything's branded. There's much more responsibilities. There's more refined brands across the board and how you portray yourself as a college athletic department. And then from the broadcasting standpoint, the advent of streaming on ESPN3 and ESPN Plus has created so much more, and the quality of those streams across the board has only risen. So those have been some huge changes, probably related to broadcasting and social media the most since I first got into it.
Which leads me to my next question. What's something you know now after these, dozen plus years working in the industry that maybe you wish you knew originally when you were first starting out that would have helped you then?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wish I had the crystal ball and I could have leaned a little bit more into how things would continue to evolve from a video stream standpoint and how things would continue to grow from an ESPN3 and ESPN Plus standpoint. That was a reason that I matched up with Jacksonville University, that I reached out to them, and they were fortunate enough to choose me for my first, full-time opportunity after graduation. Was because they had just started doing a lot of ESPN3 streaming down there as well. But I'd say that was the biggest thing looking back on that. I was being able to, could I see the future a little bit better there of how things would continue to expand across the board related to the advent of streaming and ESPN across campuses.
I should ask you this off the top, and you've already kind of touched on the stops along the way, but take us through that career path, right? You get started as a
Mhm.
student at Georgia Tech. Now you're at Kennesaw. You mentioned Jacksonville. Take me through that journey that led from Georgia Tech to where you are currently.
Yeah, it's a unique one for sure. So right before I graduated tech, I did 4.5 years. Had to get a victory lap in there, right? And I was in minor league baseball for the Missoula Osprey rookie league team for the Arizona Diamondbacks. You can see it at the top of my screen up here. And at that point, I had equal aspirations of wanting to work in Major League Baseball and wanting to be a college broadcaster. And did the minor league baseball thing for a summer. You were very familiar with that. You're a fantastic minor league broadcaster. And just decided I wanted to go for the college athletics route. I liked having the different seasons where it wasn't just baseball, being able to get football, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, the whole gamut. And graduated from tech. And at that point, it kind of took a while to be able to find a job in college athletics, looking at communications and broadcasting, since most of the turnover in the industry is in the summer months, in the spring and summer. So that's when I latched on to JU. I was at Jacksonville for a couple of years, had a great time there. I learned so much, as everyone does in their first full-time position. And I was more on the comm side than the broadcasting side. But Scott Manzi, Jim Nacella, Monye Williamson, Corey Gaynor, they were great to me down there. And in that time, I had reconnected with an old colleague. When I was at Georgia Tech as a student broadcaster, I met Brian Harvey, who was then the baseball SID for the Miami Hurricanes my freshman year. It was the first road trip I ever did. So I'm sure Brian was annoyed by me because I'm there asking probably a billion questions. Hey, is this the outlet right here that I got to plug everything into? But I reconnected with him when I was doing baseball at JU. We were playing Bethune-Cookman at Jackie Robinson Ballpark, of course. You're very familiar with that. And he hit me up. He's like, "Hey, we're hiring for a position." And the stars happened to align there, where I got to see you down in Daytona with the Tortugas. So I was at BCU as the director of broadcast media for a couple years. In that, I found an opportunity just helping out on the side with Daytona State, being able to do some games for them. They had just started streaming on their local station down there, a public station run out of the campus. So they had started doing some games. Met up over there with a couple of gentlemen that were working down at ESPN Wide World of Sports and got to know them a little bit. And then they provided some opportunities. So when I was at BCU, I was also doing some stuff down at ESPN Wide World in Orlando and had a great time there. Learned a whole bunch. I got to see things from a massive professional setup there, much larger than what we had at JU or BCU or Daytona State from a resource standpoint. So love those relationships. Was great, very grateful for those opportunities. And then my wife and I, we got married and was looking for a place to call home for a while. So it made the most sense for us to try to be in the Atlanta area. Opportunity at Kennesaw State opened up. Very gracious to David Bell to give me an opportunity. Came on in more of a comms role than a broadcasting role, and wanted to bet on myself and do everything that I could to earn those broadcasting opportunities. And then 2021 was tasked to oversee our broadcasting comms and creative units, and that's where I am today. Now as our assistant AD, so serve as our play-by-play voice, oversee our broadcasting staff, oversee our creative staff, and then oversee our comm staff as well. So we're very fortunate to have some talented people at KSU. Rely on our students heavily. We are very student focused, student driven. As I told you in my story, like I had my first dibs in this because of experience as a student. That's how I got my feet into the fire. That's how we all learn is by repetition, experience as a student. And that's what I have tasked our staff members with doing is being very student focused to get these students an opportunity. And they've done a fantastic job of that. We have some really cool stories here of students that have gotten that real world experience, internships outside of KSU while they're already students and then have lined up full-time jobs. And then now we're at a stage where we've been able to hire them back. Those that interned with us, whether it's after graduation or they make a stop or two, opportunity at KSU opens up, we've been able to get him back here in the black and gold. So cool stuff we have going on here at KSU.
Yeah, it sure is. And I think your timeline that you just laid out and even the involvement of those students speaks to my next question. I mean, how important is networking in both college athletics and then I guess also as part of the broadcasting world as well?
Yeah, and I think first thing people think of in networking is, oh, get to know some people so they can open up some doors for jobs. That's certainly a part of it. But I think even more so, a deeper level of networking is being able to increase your knowledge base, to be able to hear from others' experience and wisdom, There's so much more that we can get from setting up an informational interview with someone, reaching out to someone across the industry, introducing yourself a little bit. Maybe there's a common touch point there of, hey, we both were in the same conference, or we know someone similar here. And we can be able to ask some pointed questions there to be able to understand a little bit more of where they've come from, what they've done, and how that can help you out too. I task my interns that I work with from our broadcast side to be able to reach out to someone in the industry once a month just to get to know them. Like, you're not asking for a job, you're not asking for them to review your reel. You are reaching out to get to know them and establish a connection and learn from their experiences and their wisdom. If you can continue that and you have authentic relationships, the time will come where hopefully they can review your stuff or they can put in a word for you or help guide you towards an opportunity. For the most part, with all these jobs that came open, and that I applied for, and they were able to be hired, excuse me, they were able to hire me, uh, was from authentic relationships. It wasn't just a networking and, hey, let me touch base here once a little bit, but just happen to have relationships with these people and the opportunities arose. So there's a lot of value in that, not just from being able to increase your odds of having a contact there when a job opens up, but from a knowledge standpoint, an experience standpoint. And if you're on the right team and there's enough people doing that, exponentially, you can learn a lot more on your team and you can bring in a lot more information and experiences.
For you, along with those relationships, the different schools you have worked with, worked for, what are some qualities you look for to know that it is the right opportunity for you to go take that job, to go work with that school?
A lot of it is just fit right off the bat. And I can sense that from the people that are there, and are there levels of connection and empathy that you can find. I'm a firm believer of being exactly where your feet are. I think that is extremely important. And a part of that is, are you surrounded by people that have a very similar mindset, that are others focused, that are empathetic towards others and what they do? Have their own levels of intrinsic motivation. That's extremely important for what we do. We're working with athletes. The best ones are intrinsically motivated. I feel like the best athletic staff members are the exact same way. They want to make their shop the best. They're empathetic towards others and what everyone else is doing in their own roles and how those roles can complement each other and can work together too. So for me, it's kind of a tough question because I haven't been through this since 2019 when I came here to Kennesaw State. So just thinking back to that time, definitely looking for a fit, looking how the people were and how others focused they were at the time, which was really positive for the culture that Kennesaw State had and has.
Let me ask you to brag about yourself. And I know some people don't necessarily like doing so, but for you, what has allowed you to be successful in all aspects of your role as a broadcaster and the communication side? What traits have allowed you to be successful in this industry?
I would say developing a talent stack. So developing complementary talents that can increase the odds of finding the right opportunity and withholding that opportunity and moving forward. Um, from an intangible sense, I'd say empathy, trying to be empathetic towards others as a leader, for what people have going on in their lives. Like, at the end of the day, we're humans, and we're going to remember each other more for how we treated each other and how we thought of each other than what we did on that second week of February when we had 10,000 events going on. And were you the person there that, that I did X, Y, and Z in this event? Yeah, we need that. That's extremely important. Um, but I'm going to remember you a lot more for how you made me feel, and hopefully you'll remember me for how I made you feel as well. Um, but again, going back to the tangible sense from a talent stack perspective, I got my first opportunity at Jacksonville because Jim Nacella, the gentleman hiring, really liked that I had written feature stories. Well, I wrote feature stories because I volunteered for one of the many internships I did in college, as a lot of us did in athletics, right? Especially in broadcasting. Like, we have a knack for not doing one job. Some of it's to put food on the table, but we just always seem to find ourselves with our hands tied up. But I did a volunteer internship writing feature stories for a website in Atlanta. Well, I was one of the few people that had done that. And it just so happened to be the guy hiring like that, and that set myself apart. So for me, continuing to progress in this industry, having the right talent stack of a communications and a broadcast sense, and then being able to develop my skills on social media to be able to, again, increase that talent stack. Am I the most proficient across one of the three? Probably not. Do I know enough to increase my odds where it happens to be the right fit? And hey, this person, instead of being so focused in this one thing, they've got enough talents across the board that it makes it a unique fit. I feel like that's been important, and that's something that I've tried to instill amongst our interns here that come up of don't just focus on one thing. Like, yeah, it's great to be able to use your absolute best talents and hone in on those in certain ways, but do everything you can to just increase those complementary talents that you have that increase your odds of being able to land that job, land the first job. To get in there, what's a complementary talent that works well with what you have to increase the odds of the second job? Never know who the hiring manager is. You never know what their backgrounds are. But the more complementary talents you have, your odds of getting that job go up. No question about it.
We talked about the relationship side, networking. Here with Intercollegiate, there is intercollegiate.co. It's the most comprehensive job board out there for college athletics. This is not some sort of infomercial, so I'm asking you just, speak
Mhm.
frankly. For you, have you seen throughout your career or even working with interns, college students, guys trying to go out, guys and girls trying to go out and start this career, have you seen value in job boards when it comes to college athletics, or is it mostly just, those relationships?
I see value in job boards because I just had a conversation with an intern this morning. She was asking about an opportunity related to grad school or a job. And I said, do your research to know what you're getting yourself into, no matter what it is, right? Uh, but especially when it comes to looking at a job. So, what a job board is helpful for is you can have a lot of instant comparison to really know what you're getting yourself into. How does the job stack up with other similar jobs? How does this compare to jobs from one conference to another, from one level to another, right there? What do you see as a commonality? From an intern perspective, don't just wait until your senior year and then you look at these job boards. Like we go through and we look at things when you're young. Hey, if you were to apply for this job tomorrow, you need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And let's look at these five or six different jobs. That's a common thing in there. So we need to make sure that you get that experience over your time here. So when the time comes, there's no question about it. You got it. It's not a surprise. You're not opening up your laptop and realizing that I need to learn how to do Adobe Premiere. Uh-oh. No, no, that should not happen, right? So from that sense, like in talking to someone who's a little bit younger of how they're starting out, I think that's extremely important. And then that carries on as you get older too, being able to compare jobs, having a good idea of what you're getting yourself into, what's comparable out there. And then if you just study the industry, I think it's pretty interesting if you pull those up and you start to see people are hiring for a lot of what right now? Like, what other jobs are out there? And as a leader, too, sometimes that can be helpful as well as you start to dream and build out your staff of what else is out there. What are people looking for in these jobs? What are some unique things as the industry continues to evolve that other schools are starting to focus in on? Is that something that we can go do? Or is that something that we need to try to craft internally here amongst our staff members or students or part-timers?
We'll end on this. Let me put you on the spot before I let you go. What do you think is the most important piece of advice you've ever been given in life or professionally that you still use and apply today on maybe a day-to-day basis in your current role?
Hmm. I am not the best person at this. I am not perfect at this. So let me get that out of the way. Like, please do not clip this and take this away without giving that precursor. Um, you really never know what it's like to be in someone else's shoes until you walk a mile in their shoes. We all have different things that we battle through in life. We all have different experiences, especially the mid-major level too. And we all have unique responsibilities, opportunities, and burdens as well. So sometimes it's really easy to sit here and kind of you focus in on, okay, I'm dealing with a Luke about X right now, right? And the X that Luke came up with may not be up to what I'm looking for in standards right there. Well, what else is Luke doing right now? Luke is doing Y, Luke is doing Z, he's doing X, he's doing H. Heck, he's even doing B and C right now too. That's just what's on his plate at this level. So we need to be mindful of that at times and how we approach those things. Doesn't mean that we settle for X being at a lower standard all the time. Like, make no mistake about it. We shouldn't do that. But we need to be mindful of that in our approach and how we come to a solution. I try to take that into account. I'm not perfect at it. I am not the best one at it. So please make no mistake about that. But I try to do my best to remember that.
Thank you to Nolan Alexander, the Assistant Athletics Director of Communications and Broadcasting at Kennesaw State University, for joining us in this edition of Intercollegiate Conversations. And of course, thank you to you as well for taking the time out to watch this edition of Intercollegiate Conversations. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube page so that you don't miss any of our future conversations or content. We also encourage you to check out intercollegiate.co. It's the most comprehensive job board out there in college athletics. And as you heard from Nolan as well, job boards can be very beneficial and valuable for those in college athletics. Life is just a series of hellos and goodbyes. So for now, we say goodbye.